"You are in the wrong room, sweetie," my brother shouted at the briefing. "Real pilots only, not girls looking for a husband." The room erupted in laughter. It was not a gentle chuckle. It was the kind of laughter that strips you bare, the collective roar of 50 men fueled by adrenaline and arrogance. Caleb stood there, flanked by his usual crowd, grinning like he had just landed a carrier trap. He did not see a lieutenant commander. He did not see the woman who had spent the last 3 nights coding the simulation he was about to fly. He just saw his sister, the perennial disappointment. I did not flinch. I did not look down. I just held my coffee, feeling the heat seep through the paper cup, grounding me. Then the double doors at the back slammed open. The laughter died instantly. Admiral Sterling walked in, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. He walked straight past Caleb, not even acknowledging his existence. He stopped directly in front of me. "Falcon 1," he announced, his voice carrying to the back of the room. He raised his hand in a sharp salute. "The floor is yours. Give them hell." The silence that followed was not just quiet. It was absolute. It was the sound of a worldview shattering. Before we see how Everly handles this, drop a comment and let me know where you are tuning in from. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who did not know who you really were? To understand why that salute in the briefing room tasted like iron and victory, you have to understand the dinner that happened 2 weeks prior. It was at the Trident, the kind of seafood restaurant where the menus do not have prices and the waiters wear tuxedos better than most grooms. My father, Richard, sat at the head of the table. He was not just a retired admiral tonight. He was a kingmaker holding court. And Caleb was the crown prince. The occasion was Caleb's acceptance into the advanced tactical training program. To anyone else, it was a rigorous selection process. To us, it was a formality. My father had made the calls. The path had been cleared before Caleb even zipped up his flight suit. "To the legacy," Richard announced, raising a glass of scotch that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "To the next ace in the family." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a box. It was not wrapped. It was velvet, heavy, and unmistakable. He slid it across the white tablecloth. Caleb opened it with the greedy impatience of someone who has never heard the word no. Inside sat a vintage Rolex Submariner. $16,000 of Swiss steel and history. "Your grandfather wore this on the Enterprise," Richard said, his voice thick with performative pride. "Now it is yours. A serious watch for a serious pilot." Caleb strapped it on, holding his wrist up to the chandelier light. It looked heavy on him. Unearned. "Thanks, Dad. It is perfect." Then the kingmaker turned his gaze to me. I sat at the far end of the table, nursing a water. I was not the pilot in his eyes. I was the support staff. The admin girl. The mistake. "I did not forget you, Everly," he said. He did not reach into a pocket this time. He picked up a thin, white envelope from the table surface and flicked it toward me. Slid across the linen and stopped halfway. I had to reach for it. Opened it. Inside was a plastic gift card. Yellow and red. A gas station logo. On the back, written in Sharpie. $100. "Practical," Richard said, cutting into his steak. "For the commute to your little admin job. Gas prices are up, right? $16,000 for the son who needed strings pulled to pass his physical. $100 for the daughter who had graduated top of her class at the academy." The old Everly would have cried. The old Everly would have asked why I was not enough. But I was not that girl anymore. I sat there looking at my father, and for the first time I did not see a giant. I saw a scared, small man. I realized something in that moment, a piece of intelligence that changed the entire battlefield. He did not hate me because I was failing. He hated me because I was succeeding without him. Caleb was his creation. Every win Caleb had was a win for Richard. But me. I was self-made. I was the anomaly. Every rank I earned, every commendation I received, was a direct insult to his ego because he could not claim credit for it. My independence was not just annoying to him. It was a narcissistic injury. My competence was a mirror reflecting his lack of control. He needed me to be small so he could feel tall. He needed me to be the admin girl because if I was a commander, then who was he? I did not throw the card back. I did not make a scene. That is what he wanted, an emotional outburst to prove I was unstable. Instead, I picked up the plastic card. I tucked it into my purse, placing it right next to my Tier 1 security clearance badge, the badge that unlocked doors my father was no longer allowed to enter. "Thank you, Father," I said. My voice was level. "It is very practical." I watched Caleb admire his watch, checking the time. He had no idea his time was already running out. I did not stay to watch Caleb sweat. The humiliation was just the appetizer. The main course was waiting downstairs. I left the auditorium, my boots echoing on the linoleum, and swiped my badge at a heavy steel door marked restricted access. The light turned green. I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the subbasement. They call it the think tank. To the uninitiated, it is just a server room. To me, it is the brain of modern naval warfare. The door slid open, and the air hit me, cool, sterile, smelling of ozone and high-grade coffee. This was my domain. Up there, in the briefing room, rank was determined by who had the loudest voice or the most famous last name. Down here, rank was determined by raw processing power. The room was a cavern of blue light and black glass. My team was already at their stations. Engineers, tactical coders, threat analysts, people who spoke in algorithms and kill probabilities. They did not look at my gender. They did not look at my last name. They looked at me with the terrifying expectancy of a pack waiting for the alpha to signal the hunt. "Commander on deck," someone murmured. No shouting. No saluting. Just focus. I walked to the central console, running my hand along the cold edge of the master terminal. This was where I lived. While Caleb was out posing for photos on the flight line, I was down here, building the sky he flew in. For a long time I hated this room. I hated the isolation. I used to wonder why I was always the one in the shadows, the one doing the heavy lifting while the golden children stood in the sun. Felt like a punishment. Felt like I was being erased. But as I looked at the tactical map glowing on the main screen, I realized the truth. Isolation is not a punishment. It is a forge. The golden children are weak because they need the light. They need the applause to know they exist. But the architect learns to survive in the dark. I had spent 10 years being invisible, and in that silence, I had learned things Caleb could not even comprehend. I learned that the person who builds the maze always beats the rat running through it. I was not lonely anymore. I was dangerous. "What are the parameters for today's sortie, Commander?" my lead systems engineer asked. He was looking at the simulation loadout. "Standard training protocol." I looked at the digital representation of the Nevada range. I thought about the $16,000 watch. I thought about the girls looking for husbands comment. "No," I said. My voice was quiet, but in this room, it carried like a thunderclap. "Scrub the standard protocol. Initialize level 5. The engineer paused. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Level 5 is theoretical, Commander. That is an asymmetric saturation scenario. It is designed for worst-case warfare, not training. The attrition rate is calculated at 90%. "I know," I said. "Authorize it." He looked at me for a second longer, seeing something in my eyes that told him this was not a debate. He typed in the command. The screens shifted from a friendly blue to a warning amber. "Level 5 initialized," he confirmed. "God help them." Put on my headset. The silence of the think tank was replaced by the static of the radio channels. I could hear Caleb taxiing out onto the runway, laughing with his wingman, completely unaware that he was not flying into a training exercise. He was flying into my world now. The simulation screens lit up, painting the dark room in washes of green and amber. On the main tactical display, Caleb's squadron appeared as blue diamonds pushing into enemy airspace. Viper lead checking in. Caleb's voice crackled over the speakers. Even through the digital distortion you could hear the smirk. "Let us turn these bots into scrap metal." I watched his telemetry data. He was flying an F-35 Lightning II, a $100 million marvel of stealth technology. It was designed to be a silent assassin, a ghost in the machine. But Caleb was not flying it like a ghost. He was flying it like a muscle car at a red light. He was burning fuel unnecessarily, pulling high G turns just to feel the compression in his suit. He was performing. My father was up in the observation deck, likely sipping coffee with Admiral Sterling, pointing at the big screen and narrating Caleb's aggressive instincts. That is what they called it when a man was reckless. Instinct. When a woman did it, it was hysteria. "He is drifting off the mission corridor," my flight dynamics officer noted. His voice flat. "He is chasing a decoy drone." I saw it. A single red blip, a simple AI drone programming to mimic a lost MiG. had peeled away from the main group. Standard procedure was to ignore it and maintain formation. The mission objective was to protect the carrier group, not chase kills. But Caleb did not care about the carrier. He cared about the scoreboard. Viper lead engaging bandit, Caleb announced. Hully-ho. He broke formation. He slammed the throttle forward, abandoning his wingman. It was a move straight out of a movie, flashy and stupid. Negative Viper lead, I said into the mic. My voice was modulated, stripped of identity, the voice of the system itself. Maintain formation. Threat density is increasing. Save it, command. Caleb snapped back. I am not letting a free kill walk away. Watch this. He dove. To get the angle, he cut directly across the flight path of his digital wingman. On the screen, the two blue diamonds merged for a terrifying split second. The proximity alarms in the think tank screamed. In a real jet, the wake turbulence from that maneuver would have sent his wingman into a flat spin. It would have killed him. Near miss recorded, the system announced. Safety violation, Class A. I waited for the apology. I waited for him to check on his teammate. Did you see that? Caleb whooped. Splashed one. That is how you clear a sky, boys. He did not even know what he had almost done. He was a show horse. He was prancing for the applause, looking for the camera, obsessed with the shine of his own coat. He thought warfare was a series of highlight reels. I was the workhorse. I was the one pulling the plow through the mud, ensuring the field was actually cleared. The show horse gets the sugar cubes and the photos. The workhorse gets the scars and the silence. But when the storm comes, the show horse panics. The workhorse just keeps pulling. Then I heard it. The VIP audio feed was patched into my headset. Aggressive, Richard's voice said. He sounded delighted. That is that killer instinct I was telling you about, Admiral. He sees an opening, he takes it. A little paint swapping is just part of the game. He violated a safety protocol, Richard, Admiral Sterling's voice replied. Cool and detached. He nearly fragged his wingman. System glitch, Richard dismissed. The simulation is too sensitive. Caleb knows what he is doing. I stared at the screen. My father was rewriting reality in real time to protect his investment. He would burn down the entire Navy safety manual just to keep Caleb's pedestal from shaking. I took my hand off the safety override. I had been ready to pause the simulation, to issue a formal reprimand. But I realized that would be a mercy. Stopping him now would just give him another excuse. He would claim I interfered. He would claim the system was broken. Let him fly, I whispered. The engineers looked at me. Let him fly, I repeated louder. If he wants to be a hero, let us give him a war. Caleb pulled his jet into a victory roll, burning energy he would desperately need in about 4 minutes. He thought he was hunting. He did not realize he was just grazing in a field I had already mined. Day 2 did not start with a bang. It started with a scream. Pull up, pull up. The automated flight voice Betty warned over the speakers. On the main screen, Caleb's telemetry was a red line diving straight into the virtual desert floor. He was chasing a low-flying drone through a canyon, trying to replicate a maneuver he had probably seen in a movie. He was too heavy, too fast, and too late. I got it, Caleb yelled. He did not get it. The screen flashed impact detected. The simulation reset. Caleb had just flown a $100 million aircraft into the side of a mountain because he refused to check his altitude. This thing is rigged. Caleb's voice tore through the comms, shrill and panicked. My altimeter was lagging. The stick felt mushy. Who programmed this garbage? I want to reset. Reset the board. I sat in the command chair, my face illuminated by the kill screen. Negative on the reset, I said. You violated the hard deck. You are dead. The line went silent. Then the red phone on my console rang. The internal line. Only one person would call me on that line during a live exercise. Everly. My father's voice was low, vibrating with suppressed rage. What are you doing? I am running a simulation, father. Caleb just failed it. He did not fail. The system is glitching. I saw it from the deck. The physics engine is off. The physics engine is NASA grade, I replied, keeping my voice devoid of emotion. It is gravity. Gravity works the same for everyone, even your son. Do not get smart with me, he hissed. Admiral Sterling is sitting right next to me. He is evaluating the program. If Caleb looks incompetent, we look incompetent. Do you understand? This reflects on the family. Caleb is incompetent. Fix it, Richard commanded. Go into the code. Lower the difficulty. Adjust the ground proximity warning. Make the enemy AI less aggressive. I do not care how you do it, but the next sortie needs to be a win. Do as you are told, Everly. The line clicked dead. I stared at the receiver. He was not asking for a favor. He was ordering me to commit fraud. He wanted me to rig a federal military exercise so his son could play hero. He was asking me to compromise the integrity of the entire naval training program to protect his fragile ego. I looked at my team. They were watching me, waiting. They knew who was on the phone. They knew what was being asked. If I lowered the difficulty, Caleb would pass. He would get his wings. He would deploy. And someday, in a real sky with real missiles, he would get himself and his wingmen killed because he never learned to fear the ground. Commander, my lead engineer asked softly, do we roll back to level 3? I looked at the code scrolling on my monitor. I looked at the safety override command my father wanted me to type. No, I said. I opened a submenu that I had written myself, late at night, when the rest of the base was sleeping. It was a folder marked experimental. Inside was a program I called the Swarm. Standard simulations use scripted enemies. They fly in patterns. They are predictable. The Swarm was different. It was a neural network. Learned. Every time a pilot made a mistake, the Swarm analyzed it, adapted, and evolved. It did not fight like a human. It fought like a hive mind. It did not possess fear or ego. It was pure, mathematical violence. We are not rolling back, I said. We are updating the threat logic. To what? Unrestricted, I said. Authorize the rogue swarm. The engineer's eyes widened. Commander, the swarm learns from aggression. If Caleb flies reckless, then the swarm will punish him for it, I finished. He wants to play games. Fine. Let us see how he handles an enemy that does not care about his last name. I hit enter. The amber lights on the tactical board turned a deep blood red. The simulation rebooted. The enemy aircraft did not appear in formation this time. They appeared as a cloud of data, scattered, silent, and waiting. My father wanted me to fix the code. I just broke it wide open. The final sortie began with a lie. Looks like clear skies, boys, Caleb announced over the tactical frequency. Command says the threat level has been downgraded. Let us mop this up and get to the bar. He sounded relaxed, arrogant. He thought my father had won. He thought I had bent the knee, gone into the code, and gelded the enemy to make him look like a stallion. He launched his flight of 4, climbing to Angels 20, expecting target practice. Down in the think tank, the mood was funereal. My team watched the main screen in silence. They saw what Caleb could not. The clear skies on his radar were a digital hallucination. Swarm is active, my lead engineer whispered. Status, hunting. On the tactical display, 50 red dots materialized out of the digital noise. They did not fly in formation. They did not follow doctrine. They moved like a fluid, a murmuration of starlings made of titanium and hate. They were not reacting to Caleb. They were predicting him. Contact. Caleb's wingman screamed. Multiple bandits. They are everywhere. I cannot get a lock. They are jamming everything. To come. Caleb shouted, his voice cracking. It is just a glitch. Shoot them. Dad said, splash. The first wingman vanished from the board. The swarm did not even slow down. They swarmed the second pilot, overwhelming his sensors with phantom signals before delivering a simulated kinetic kill. Flash 2. What is happening? Richard's voice cut into my headset from the observation deck. Everly. I told you to lower the difficulty. Why are they dying? I did not raise the difficulty, father, I said into the private line, my voice cold steel. I raised the reality. Caleb was alone now. The swarm ignored him for a moment, circling like sharks smelling blood in the water. He was frantically banking left and right, burning his fuel, firing missiles at ghosts. He was fighting an enemy he could not bully. I am declaring an emergency, Caleb yelled. My systems are compromised. The enemy is cheating. He is not cheating, I murmured. He is evolving. I typed a command into my console. Override. Manual control. I was not just watching anymore. I grabbed the joystick at my station. On the screen, a single black triangle separated from the swarm. Call sign Ghost. I have control, I announced to the room. I did not shoot him down immediately. That would be too quick. I herded him. I flew the ghost bandit right onto his 6 o'clock, sitting in his blind spot. When he turned left, I turned left. When he climbed, I climbed. I was his shadow. I pushed him toward the mountains. I pushed him until his fuel gauge flashed red. I pushed him until the panic was the only thing flying the jet. He is on me. He is on me. Caleb was hyperventilating now. I cannot shake him. Where is he? I flipped the switch to the guard frequency, the emergency channel that everyone, including the Admiral, including my father, could hear. Check 6, Lieutenant, I said. Caleb violently twisted his jet, looking back. He saw the digital avatar of the black jet sitting right on his tail, motionless, inevitable. Fox 2, I whispered. I did not fire a missile. I did not have to. The lock-on tone screaming in his ears broke him. He did not try to evade. He did not try to fight. Ejecting. Ejecting. Caleb pulled the handle. On the big screen in the observation deck, the canopy of the lead F-35 blew off. The pilot rocketed away from the fight, leaving a $100 million aircraft to crash into the virtual desert. He had bailed out of a fight he started. He had abandoned his ship. The screen flashed. Pilot ejected. Mission failed. Total loss. In the think tank, nobody cheered. It was not a game. It was an execution. I took off my headset and laid it gently on the console. The silence in the room was heavy, reverent. Simulation complete, I said. Save the tape. Up in the observation deck, I knew my father was staring at a blank screen, realizing that his golden boy had not just lost a war game. He had lost the myth. 2 hours later, the debriefing room was a tomb. The air was thick with the smell of nervous sweat and cooling electronics. Every pilot from the exercise was seated, silent, staring at the front of the room. Caleb sat at a small table on the stage. He was not wearing his flight suit anymore. He was in his service khakis, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He kept glancing at our father in the front row, begging for a lifeline. But Richard was not looking at him. He was staring at the floor, his face a mask of stone. I walked to the podium. I plugged in the data drive. The massive screen behind me illuminated the room with a harsh white light of truth. Let us review the tape, I said. My voice was not angry. It was clinical. It was the voice of the system. I played the footage. The room watched in silence as Caleb ignored safety warnings. They watched him abandon his wingmen. They watched him fly a $100 million asset into a trap because he was too arrogant to check his 6. At 1400 hours, I narrated, using a laser pointer to circle the data. Viper lead ignored a direct safety override. He burned his fuel reserves chasing a phantom. He left his squadron exposed. Caleb stood up, his chair screeching against the floor. The system was rigged. She hacked it. Tell them, Dad. Tell them she rigged the physics. Richard stood up then. I braced myself for the yelling. I braced myself for him to use his rank, his connections, his influence to crush me one last time. Sit down, Caleb, Richard said. His voice was quiet, defeated. But Dad, I said sit down. Admiral Sterling stood up next to my father. He looked at Caleb, then he looked at me. That was not a hack, Lieutenant. That was a lesson. You did not lose to a computer. You lost to a superior tactician. The Admiral turned to the safety officer. Pull his flight status. Pending a full review board. He is grounded. Caleb slumped back into his chair. It was over. The Golden Boy myth had collided with reality, and reality won. A week later, I stood in my new office. The plaque on the door read Director of Naval Warfighting Development. The view outside was the same, the shimmering heat of the flight line, the roar of jets, but the view inside had changed. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My inbox was full of reports, budget approvals, and tactical assessments. But one email stood out. Sender Richard. Subject, checking in. Opened it. There was no apology. No, I am sorry I treated you like an accessory. No, I am proud of you. It read. Everly, congrats on the promotion. Listen, Caleb is having a hard time. The review board is tough. I was thinking with your new position maybe you could find him a spot in logistics. He needs a landing soft place. We are family after all. Leaned back. He had not changed. He was still the same man who gave me a gas card and his son a Rolex. He still thought family was a magic word he could use to bypass the consequences of his own parenting. I hovered my mouse over the reply button. The old Everly would have written back. She would have explained why that was impossible. She would have tried to reason with him. But I was not her anymore. I did not need to explain myself. I did not need to fix his mistakes. I moved the mouse to the right. Archive. Clicked it. The email vanished from the screen. No drama. No argument. Just gone. I stood up and walked out to the balcony. The sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in violent purples and golds. A flight of F-35s roared overhead, their afterburners glowing against the twilight. I closed my eyes and listened to the thunder. It was not noise. It was the sound of freedom. Everly found her peace by archiving the toxicity. If you are still holding on to an email you should have deleted years ago, let this be your sign. Hit that like button if you are ready to choose your own peace, and share this story with someone who needs to know they are enough.